What's up YouTube? Welcome back to my channel, and this week's video is all about the 1962 Bel Air wagon project. Now it's been quite a while since I worked on this project, and for all you new guys to my channel, I'll give you a recap to get you up to speed to where we're at now. But before we get to that, if you are new to this channel, make sure you click the subscribe button in the corner so you can follow along with all my projects regardless of what it is. So over the past year and a half, I pretty much have been trying to solve all the issues with rust in this wagon. I've repaired the inner and outer rockers, added in a one-piece floor, top coated the top side of the floor pan, undercoated the bottom side of the floor pan, and I blasted and painted the firewall. And of course, all this work involved one major step, and that was removing the frame. Now that old rusty frame no longer has a spot in this project, and that's what I want to talk about today, the new frame and the new drivetrain. We're going to talk about exactly what it is and what it's going to take to make it work. And here's the wagon body as it is sat for the past few months during the winter. And I haven't really done much to it, but you might be able to see I've got at least my steering column in there and a few grommets. But otherwise than that, this thing's pretty much been untouched, as you see here. I am still waiting on one of these patch panels here. I've been waiting for about 9 months. There is no date in sight for one. And what I'm probably going to end up having to do is buy a full quarter panel for two-door and put that in there, and those things are really expensive. They're around $550 versus this patch panel down at the bottom is around $250, $300. But I need to get this squared away because my gas tank goes right behind this, and this all needs to be straightened out before we get this body on the frame. And of course, I haven't done anything in the back here. I've got a few little patches to go ahead and straighten out and get all this coated. But today, what I'm going to talk about is the frame that goes underneath this body. Now, if you're keeping up with this project, this is the frame that we removed in an earlier video. And as you can see, it is not really in good shape at all. We have a lot of rust, very heavy surface rust. Not so much up front, but in the back is where we really have the problems. Body mount holes rusted out. Body mount hole rusted out, and you can see the whole back half of the frame was rusted out. So with the amount of rust in this frame, it's obviously not a good idea to put something like this back underneath the car. So I bought a replacement frame, and I've also got the drivetrain that we're going to use in this car already sitting in there, and we're going to take a look at that. Well, I'm out at the shop, and up on top of the lift here, this is the replacement frame and drivetrain for the Bel Air wagon. Now, to get a better look at this, I'm going to need to get it down. And as you can see, I've got the rat rod truck, I've got an engine, a transmission, and some parts, and we need to get all that stuff out of the way first. Now, this thing down on the ground, we can take a good look at it. This thing's pretty much been done sitting in the shop for the past 2 years. I bought this thing originally when I bought the car because I knew I had some issues and I knew I was going to need to replace it. What you see here, it's basically a nut and bolt restoration. I've sandblasted and wire brushed the frame, coated it in epoxy primer, and put a flattened single stage paint job on top of it. And everything's been gone through. All the nuts and bolts are all brand new. All the suspension, all the ball joints, all the bushings, all the steering rods, all that stuff's all brand new. You can see those air lines. I'm adding air rod to this car. So this car is bagged. You can see it here better in the back. And basically I have new fuel lines, new brake lines, everything involved with the frame. It's all brand new. Now back here in the back, I did have to construct this fuel system because, you know, we do have a fuel injected engine. And here we have a Corvette style pressure filter regulator. And I had to construct all these lines because the wagon frame's a little bit different. The wagon fuel system's a little different than a standard Impala or Bel Air. And as you can see, I have my rear disc brakes set up on the back. I have an adjustable panhard bar, which is kind of hard to see there, an adjustable banana bar. And that pretty much does it for the rear suspension. And as far as the front suspension, of course, I have the airbag set up just like in the rear. Nothing fancy as far as any of the control arms or anything. They're all stock, just new bushings. And I've got a CPP power steering box. So we're going to have power steering. And here is the centerpiece of the frame, and that is the LS1 engine and the 4L60 automatic. Now this drivetrain came out of a 1998 Chevrolet Camaro that was wrecked in the back, and I bought it solely for this drivetrain. Now this is a good running engine, so I didn't really want to go and start messing with any of the internals. So all I really did was clean it up, freshen some gaskets up. Now I did add shorty headers, spark plug wires, and the Corvette fuel rail covers. Now I like the way these covers look, so I definitely wanted to put these on there to kind of make it look a little bit better. Those coils are not really all that attractive to look at. Now this accessory setup, this is all Camaro, and this is what I'm going to use. And as you can see, it works out just fine with no issues. And in the future, I plan on adding AC to this car. So we'll end up getting a bracket here and an AC compressor and all that stuff, and it'll work out. The Camaro one was down at the bottom, and that obviously wouldn't work because you have no room because of the engine mount. Another thing I want to point out about the drivetrain is this thing has a custom drive shaft. Now these things come with a two-piece drive shaft from the factory, but they do not have a slip in the rear. Now when you add air suspension or hydraulics, you definitely want to have a slip in the rear. So this is a brand new shaft, and it does have a slip in there. You can't see it because it's up in this pocket here. And in the middle here, it has a carrier bearing. Now normally it would just be this normal sheet metal carrier bearing assembly, but I have a heavy duty billet aluminum one, which you're not going to be able to see because it's up in there pretty good. Now the frame's pretty much complete. There are a few little things that I need to do. A couple things I definitely need to do to this frame. I need to add this pitman arm and the center link so all my steering will be correct. And here I have my front disc brake setup that I took off of the old frame. So that's pretty much where I'm at with the frame. There's a few other little minor things that I might need to do, such as putting the fluid in the transmission and putting fluid into the rear end. But otherwise than that, this thing is ready to go underneath the car. Now obviously swapping in a modern drivetrain, as you see here, into an older vehicle is going to involve some wiring. And that's exactly what I'm going to have to do. Now I plan on using the factory wiring harness off of this engine, but there's one problem. This is a 1998 model, and the 1998 model PCM is not readily supported. So the best option for me is to convert to the 99 to 2002 Camaro PCM. And that PCM is readily supported by things such as HP tuners, and that'll cause less problems down the road. Now since I converted from the 98 style PCM to the 99 to 2002 style PCM, obviously I needed to buy a new one, and I have it here, and it's programmed ready to go. And here in this box, I have a pretty cool tool sent to me from the guys over at Maxpeedingrods. Now what this tool is going to allow me to do is to bench test this PCM before we get it in the car. So we're going to take a look at this thing and see exactly how it works. So let's open this thing up and take a look at it. Now what this actually is, this is a LS style bench test harness for your PCM. And what this does is this plugs into your PCM. You have a 12-volt power supply that you plug into the wall, and you have your OBD2 connector. Now what this allows you to do is to test your PCM on the workbench before you hook this thing up in the car, so you can check all your perimeters. So this connector seems to be pretty well made. All the wiring looks really good, and it is the blue connector, as you can see. So I guess the next step is let's hook this thing up and see exactly how it works. So to get this thing hooked up, you're going to take your PCM and locate the blue connector, which it says blue right here. Take your connector from your harness, snap it in. Now, I don't believe you really need to run the screw in. I mean, it's not going to be permanent, so this should be fine just snapping it in. You're going to take your power supply, plug it into the wall, and then you're going to take your OBD2 port, and then you're going to hook it up to your OBD2 scan tool. Now I'm just using a cheap generic scan tool, but this should work with anything. Now the next thing to do is pretty much just go through your scan tool, look at all your perimeters. Obviously we're not going to have any kind of check engine lights or anything since this is a reprogrammed PCM, but you can take a look at all your perimeters and everything should look really good. Seems like everything tests out okay. So that right there lets us know that this PCM is good to go. And now that you're done with your test, you can unplug your scan tool from your OBD2 port, you can unplug your power supply, and you can unplug the connector from the PCM. So it seems like this bench test harness works exactly like it should. I didn't see any kind of issues, and I want to thank the guys from Maxpeedingrods for sending this over to me to let me try it out. Now, if you'd like one of these bench test harnesses for yourself, be sure to check out Maxpeedingrods.com in the product link below down in the description box, and be sure to use my coupon code 4LANE for 15% off of your order. And here is the factory wiring harness off of the engine, and as you can see, I've already started working on this thing. Now, it's really not hard to make one of these factory wiring harnesses stand alone. Basically, you have a few constant hots, a few switched hots, and a few grounds that you need to connect, and that's not really that big of a deal. So to do that, you're going to need a few things like this wiring diagram. You're going to need a fuse block to add in a few fuses. You're going to need an OBD2 plug, and you're going to need a relay for your fuel pump. So now that I did switch to that 99 to 2002 PCM, there are some wiring differences on the blue and the red connectors. And that's what this wiring diagram right here is for. I basically had to move a few things around from, say, the blue pin to the red pin, vice versa. Now, this wiring harness is complete on that end. I've already finished that part. Basically, I'm just finishing up the wiring for some of my connectors that go to the car, some of my gauge wiring, and of course, I obviously have to hook up my relay and my OBD2 port and my fuse block. Now, with the PCM tested and the wiring harness pinned out for the new PCM, we have everything ready for when the body goes back onto the frame. So if wintertime finally over, hopefully we can jump back in this project and get some of that stuff done underneath the car, get the quarter panel finished, so we can put the body back onto the frame. So until then, I would like to say thank you for watching. If you're not subscribed, click the subscribe button, click the bell so you'll get the notifications, and you can also follow me on Facebook and Instagram.